They are here live in studio with us. Me mihi kātika, the co-leaders of the Māori Party, Rawiri, Waititi, Debbie Ngarewa-Packer, tēnā pūrua. No mai, thank you so much for coming to the studio. Thank you for your time. I just wanted to go back to the Grace Foundation. It's amazing the work that this organisation and organisations like these do. Given our political times, can we see the ongoing survival of organisations like this, given the way the current government talks, acts, says, moves?
I had the privilege of watching them live at the Auckland, at the Tāmaki Makaurau Regionals, and I could tell you what, they were the people's choice because they. The reconnection that showed the oranga of kapahaka. And so when we've got governments that fund te matatini because they think it's performative, in actual fact it's transformative. And there's been research and matatini have just shown research that actually te matatini is much wider than just a performative state. It's not just an arts, performing art as we see it as oranga. And as you can see with the Grace Foundation, I just want to mihi to Dave Latale and the mahi that he's done in this particular space, giving our people the opportunity to reconnect. It's a health strategy, it's an education strategy, it's a strategy to reconnect our people, but it's about nourishment and not punishment. Yeah. And we need to start looking and moving away from that type of ideologies that our prisons and that the justice system has. It's punitive. Yeah. It's not about nourishing our people.
So we are approaching a budget very, very soon. What do you expect to see? Because this government's very clear. Once it talks about tax cuts that they say will benefit 85% of New Zealanders, tax relief for low and middle income families, that's what they say the focus is, Debbie.
I mean, I think, if we pick up what Rawiri's just said, in summary, that is about transformation, what we've just seen with this kapaka, what we've seen with Dave, the commitments to strategies of hope. And what we're not going to see from this budget and this government is any strategy of hope for us as Māori, which is why we have to stay focused on our own direction, our own moemoeā, and most importantly, our kotahitanga towards what transformation needs to look like for us. Because we've seen it. We've seen them make announcements about mega prisons. We've seen them make announcements about bringing life back to zombie projects. We've seen them making announcements about, punishing their way through to justice, ignoring every statistic, every investment, social investment in ourselves. So, we're not going to see anything that's going to transform our cost of living. What we are seeing is the crisis of cost of living to afford to eat, but the cost of living as tangata whenua in Aotearoa. And that worries us, which is why Rawiri and I are adamant in this term as Te Pāti Māori. We must focus on our people. We must live and lift our horizons on what rangatiratanga needs to look like.
Take the point. What they talk about is balancing the books. They say it's crucial. If you don't balance the books, the long-term impacts on the future of the country are not assured. I hear phrases even from our own Māori MPs like Tama Pōtaka talking about fiscal austerity. Which have a connotation to them. Sounds very UK Conservative Party, actually. But what they say is without that, you can't do the things that Debbie's just talked about.
What they do is they're maintaining a white supremacy type system that continues to favour one part of community over another.
How does it do that? Because they'll say if you have the financial austerity, if you can balance the books, that benefits everyone.
Well, the first thing that white supremacy does is that they actually ignore the existing tangata whenua and the existing economy, their people, their taiao. And the second thing they do, which is what we've seen from this government, is that they continue to punish those who are struggling and reward those who own multiple properties, who are rich. They look after the wealthy. And that's what we've seen from this government. The thing is, we all saw it coming. We all saw it coming. We kept asserting, whānau mā, this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to... Well, guess what? It's happened. And so now we've got to focus on the solutions that Te Pāti Māori has.
You've got 100,000 people, homeless people in Aotearoa. 60,000 of those are our people. You've got 54% of the male prison population Māori. You've got 64% of the female prison population Māori. You've got over 70% of the tamariki and Oranga Tamariki Māori. So you can't tell me that this is not a white supremacist system that continues to feast off the dysfunction it's created. Look, you've got the notion of the coloniser coming here, trying to take this country by gunpoint, failed. Then they tried to assume their sovereignty and their superiority through Te Tiriti o Waitangi. And so we continue to bang our heads against the wall. Look, the last government said this is the biggest investment they made into Māori with $1 billion. That was 0.3% of the total budget. Somebody else is getting 99.7% of the budget, and this is why we must continue to challenge it. But we must stop defund the system that continues the neoliberal colonisation and violence of our people.
Is that why you don't support the fast-track legislation? Because there are some people who would say, actually, the previous system, the RNA process, the consenting process, actually held back some hapu, some whānau, iwi even. And so there are benefits in the proposal that they can see. What do you say?
I think we need to first of all be really clear that there is business as usual, that there is the ability for those to be able to expedite their own projects. But let's be clear, that is rangatiratanga. That is those whānau, those hapu, those iwi speaking to themselves about their own whenua and their own moemoeā. But this bill doesn't do that. This bill wipes and removes anything to do with our rights as mana whenua under Te Tiriti. It gives superpowers to bring back zombie projects to ministers who aren't super.
To ministers.
They're not super in any way or form. So it's an oppressive bill, and we need to be really clear when in history of us as tangata whenua has anything fast worked for us.
OK, that's the point. So would you support the legislation if the ministers didn't have the ultimate veto?
No.
Okay.
No, not in its current form, because of the critical factor is the erosion of your status as tangata whenua, as mana whenua, and the recognition of our rights and interests under Te Tiriti.
The other problem is that you've got ministers that will make a decision over 3 years that will have over 100-year impact on our whenua and on our whakapapa. And that's the concern that the Pāti Māori have at this particular time. It's reckless. It's reckless decision-making. It's reckless legislation-making. And that we will absolutely not support 3 people making those decisions on behalf of the iwi Māori.
There is also concern about the lack of voice that is going to be given to some who massive amount of submissions made into this legislation. Only 1,100 people are able to give oral submissions.
Well, it's actually even less. I think it's even less, to be fair. So there were 27,000, 2,900 want to speak. It's been relegated down to 500. I've heard 254 of them, and only 14 support it. But, you know, they're practically being chucked into a ballot system, so it's a potluck. You know, it's a lucky dip approach to it, and, you know, again, fast plus lucky dip. You know, they're all key triggering words for us, and we should be worried as Māori, and certainly Te Pāti Māori are. We're really concerned.
Absolutely.
And given tangata whenua voice and process, I also want to talk about the Waitangi Tribunal. So it'll be 50 years since the establishment by law of the Treaty of Waitangi Act, 1975. Isn't it right that the Waitangi Tribunal was reviewed? Given we're hitting about a 50-year mark, shouldn't there be a review in some way, shape or form?
Well, look, that review should be determined by us. It's the litigator and holding this government account to the many breaches. And they think that the Waitangi Tribunal should be only looking at breaches that were pre-1992, when in actual fact they continue to breach the Treaty of Waitangi today. And so who is going to be the litigator for that? And so the Waitangi Tribunal has a place, but it's for Māori to determine what that reconciliation looks like. It shouldn't be determined by Pāke, it shouldn't be determined by governments. That should be determined by Māori, whether we see that it still has a place or not.
But you know that the government could legislate away the Waitangi Tribunal if it wanted to anyway. Now, it says it's committed to a review, but it could move to legislate against the tribunal. It could remove the legislation itself if it wanted to. That is the prerogative of the government. Do you see that as a possibility, Debbie?
I think with this government, we just have to take stock whānau and imagine what the worst case that you could ever want, your worst fear that you could ever have, could happen with this government. So we actually have to start talking to ourselves and reminding ourselves to remember what we're capable of, and to remember why the tribunal is here, to remember what Te Tiriti is about, and start having the real conversation about our own Māori nationalisation, our own mana motahaki. We've been talking about it, we've seen all the kōrero going around with all the kotahitanga movement, and we've gone out, and what I've seen is lots of little fires, but actually whānau mā. We actually have to look after the major fire that will bring about the change that we must have. And otherwise, it doesn't matter whether it was the ones before us who slowly did things like, you know, had, I don't know, warrantless searches on Marae during COVID, or this one, which is just ruthlessly taken us out, exterminating everything we represent. So we actually have to have the conversation inside ourselves, inside our home, inside our marae, inside our communities. What is and when are we going to achieve mana motahake, Māori nationalisation. That's the conversation we need to go for, because we're too at risk with all these other clowns left or
I don't have
right.
a question on this, but you raised it, so I want to ask.
Kōrero.
How do we do that?
Well, we need to start stepping into comfortably into Article 2 of the Tiriti Waitangi. Now, when our tupuna signed that 183 years ago, I don't think 183 years down the track, they would think their mokopuna still continues to consider what actually I am the sovereign looks like. And so Article 2 was the protection of the pre-existing rights of tangata whenua to their whenua, to our moana, to our kāinga, and to our taonga for as long as we choose to hold on to them. And so this is about us now, defunding. Right. Defunding, stop contributing to a system that continuously keeps us in second place, but defunding it and start to look at our own mana motuhake and rangatiratanga and stepping into Article 2 of the Tiriti.
It's got to be our number one priority. It has to be our number one priority in every discussion. And the problem that we're having is that we keep getting invited to talk to conversations about, 7AA or the Māori Health Authority, all this. And you know what? They were all elements that made up rangatiratanga. But we have to stay focused on number one priority.
7AA. The issue, obviously, about the minister appearing or giving evidence before the tribunal on the removal of 7AA or the repeal of treaty obligations from the Oranga Tamariki Act called 7AA. The Māori Party policy actually says remove Oranga Tamariki anyway. Mokopuna ora.
That's right.
So why is this such an issue then, when in actual fact what we're saying here is Oranga Tamariki isn't set up for us anyway?
That's exactly what we're saying. Oranga Tamariki is not the right fit for our people, and we've been saying that for a long, long time. We were the ones that moved to remove the last CEO of it. It's failed near on 20 reviews, Oranga Tamariki. If there was a Māori organisation that failed more than nearly 20 reviews, it would have been gone. Look at the Māori Health Authority.
Right.
In 9 months they assessed it and said, it's not doing the job. 9 months. They've had 183 years to fail our people and continue to fund themselves on the dysfunction they've created amongst our people. So Oranga Tamariki is not the right fit. We're saying a mokopuna Māori entity and authority independent for us to be able to look after our own Tamariki mokopuna. 7AA, what that does is it severs the whakapapa of our Tamariki to their iwi. That the government and Oranga Tamariki is not obligated to ensure that that tamaiti is still connected to its iwi, still connected to its whānau.
But the minister's saying that she will ensure that partnerships continue, that the current service providers continue to provide the services they currently provide, and more partnerships with Māori.
No, see, that minister suffers trauma. And we all suffer trauma, but that minister suffers trauma and has brought it into her role to pay back and to affect negatively Māori. And, 7AA was working. If you look at all the stats from 2018 when it came in, it actually has evidence that proves it's been working for our whānau. It's not enough, but it's a great step in the right direction. But because we've allowed governments that have got hara about us, who aren't comfortable in their assertion in their own Māori and their own wakapapa, we've had this mentality, this ahua, let's exterminate that hauora, let's exterminate the smoking thing, let's exterminate 7AA, and let's exterminate wakapapa full stop, because I carry trauma. The reality is we have to go back into that space about the number one priority, about rangatiratanga. So these things that we're doing are to save and holding, we're basically holding the line now, but they are not the finishing line. And we've got to stay focused on that.
I've got to go because I'm getting the wrap up from whatever.
Sorry,
I could do this a lot with both of you and also with politicians. I think there are big conversations that need to be had. I just want to thank you both for coming and being live with us. Really appreciate your time. Of course, they're the co-leaders of the Māori Party.